And when
And then you
people
turn
get
it
all
down.
pent up, or a partner says to the other partner,
Nobody expected this. Not her fans, not her friends, not even the people closest to her. When Rachael Ray stepped in front of the camera for what felt like just another day, something was different. You could see it in her eyes. That brightness she always had, that unstoppable energy, that made millions of people fall in love with her. It was still there. But underneath it, something was breaking. And then her husband, John Cusimano, spoke. His words were quiet, simple, the kind of words you say when you've run out of time to pretend everything is fine. Fans heard it. They really heard it. And within hours, social media exploded. Comments flooded in from people saying they cried in their cars. People saying they had to stop scrolling and just sit with the feeling. Because this wasn't celebrity drama. This wasn't a PR stunt or a carefully crafted headline. This was real. This was a man looking at the woman he loves, the woman who had survived fire, loss, public criticism, health scares, and years of sacrificing everything for her career, and finally saying out loud what so many people feel but never get to say. And when you hear it, you're going to understand why the internet hasn't stopped talking about it. Stay with me, because what happened behind the scenes of Rachael Ray's life is far more powerful, far more painful, and far more beautiful than anything you've seen on her show. Most people think they know Rachael Ray. They know the 30-minute meals. They know the big smile. They know the raspy laugh that somehow makes you feel like you're sitting in your best friend's kitchen, even through a television screen. But here's the thing about people who make everyone else feel good. They're often carrying things no one sees. Rachael Ray has been in the public eye for over 2 decades. She built an empire from scratch. No culinary school degree, no fancy connections, just raw passion, relentless work ethic, and a personality so magnetic that America didn't just watch her, they trusted her, they loved her. But behind every single episode, every cookbook, every magazine spread, every smile she gave to the camera, there was a private life that was quietly being tested in ways that would have broken most people. In 2022, Rachael and John lost their home to fire. Not metaphorically, literally. Their house burned down. They lost irreplaceable things, memories, years of their life together, gone in smoke. And then came the health battles, the vocal cord surgery that silenced her, physically silenced her, for a terrifying stretch of time. For a woman whose voice is literally her brand, her identity, her livelihood. That wasn't just scary. That was devastating. And through all of it, John was there. John Cusimano, the rock musician turned attorney who married one of the most famous women in America, was always just slightly out of frame, supportive, steady, the kind of man who doesn't need the spotlight because he's too busy protecting the person standing in it. But recently, something changed. John stepped forward. He spoke. And what he said, what he chose to say publicly, after years of staying quiet, sent shockwaves through Rachael's entire fanbase. Because it wasn't just a message of love. It was a goodbye to a version of their life they can never get back. And it was a hello to something neither of them expected. Before the empire, there was a girl from upstate New York who just loved to cook. Rachael Ray didn't grow up with silver spoons. She grew up with cast iron pans, and the smell of good food, and a mother who ran restaurants, and a family where the kitchen was the heart of everything. That shaped her deeply. She wasn't the kid dreaming about fame. She was the kid who found comfort in feeding people, who understood, even as a teenager, that food is love in its most practical form. She worked her way up through grocery stores, through cooking demonstrations in supermarkets, through a local television segment in Albany, New York, that was never supposed to go anywhere. But it did. Because when Rachael Ray walked in front of a camera, something happened that you can't manufacture. People didn't just watch her cook. They felt welcomed. They felt like it was okay not to be perfect, like a simple, delicious meal made in 30 minutes wasn't settling, it was living. The Food Network noticed, and then the whole country noticed. But here's what most people forget about that early rise. It was brutal. The culinary world didn't exactly welcome her with open arms. Critics who'd spent decades training in Michelin-starred kitchens looked at this enthusiastic woman, making simple food, and they sneered. They called her too simple, too commercial, not a real chef. And Rachael, she kept smiling, she kept cooking, she kept showing up. But inside, those words landed. They always land, no matter how tough you act. She once said in an interview that there were moments in those early years where she questioned everything, where she wondered if they were right, if she was somehow less than. And it was during one of those low moments that she met John. Not at a glamorous industry event, not at some Hollywood party. They met because of music and food and the collision of two very different worlds that somehow made perfect sense together. And from that first meeting, John saw something in Rachael that she hadn't fully seen in herself yet. He saw someone who wasn't just talented. He saw someone who was going to endure. John Cusimano is not who you'd expect Rachael Ray to end up with. He's tattooed. He's in a band. He's intense and quiet in ways that are the complete opposite of Rachael's warm, bubbling energy. And somehow, that's exactly why it works. They got married in 2005 in a castle in Montalcino, Italy, surrounded by family, surrounded by wine and food and the kind of joy that looks like it belongs in a movie. But marriage, real marriage, is never just the castle moment. It's what comes after. The Tuesday mornings, the arguments about nothing that are actually about everything. The way that people either grow toward each other or slowly start drifting apart. For Rachael and John, the years that followed their wedding were a wild ride. Rachael's career exploded in a way that nobody, not even she, fully anticipated. The show expanded. The magazine launched. The cookbooks stacked up. The brand grew into something massive and unstoppable. And that kind of success comes with a cost. Because you don't build something that big without sacrificing time, without missing dinners, without coming home exhausted and having nothing left to give the person who loves you most. John watched it happen. He supported it. He traveled with her when he could. He held things together when she couldn't. But there were rumors. There always are with public figures. In 2008, tabloids started swirling with stories about their marriage, accusations, allegations, the kind of headlines designed to make people click and feel like they're watching a train wreck. Rachael didn't dignify most of it with a response. John didn't either. But here's what's important. Here's what actually matters. They stayed. Both of them. Through the noise, through the scrutiny, through the pressure of living a private relationship inside a very public life. They chose each other. Again and again and again. And that choice, that quiet, unspectacular, profoundly human choice, is at the heart of everything John eventually said. Let's talk about September 2022. Because this is where the story shifts. This is where everything Rachael and John had built, literally and figuratively, went up in flames. Their home in Lake Luzerne, New York caught fire. They got out safely. But the house, the place where they had made memories, hosted friends, built a life together, was largely destroyed. When Rachael spoke about it publicly, her voice cracked. And for a woman who is trained to perform, who has done thousands of hours of television, a cracked voice means something. She talked about grabbing her dog. She talked about standing outside watching something irreplaceable burn. She talked about the strange, disorienting feeling of suddenly having almost nothing material to hold onto. John stood beside her through all of it, quiet, steady, there. But here's what Rachael revealed later. And this is the part that most people glossed over, because they were focused on the dramatic headline of the fire itself. She said that losing the house cracked something open in her, in a way she didn't expect, and didn't ask for, and couldn't control. She said she found herself crying not just about the house, but about everything she'd been too busy to cry about. Every sacrifice she'd made, every moment she'd pushed through when she should have stopped, every time she'd put the career first and the personal second. The fire forced her to stop, and stopping, after decades of relentless motion, was terrifying. John was the one who sat with her in that stillness, not fixing it, not filling the silence, just being there. And in that period of rebuilding their home, rebuilding their sense of safety, rebuilding themselves, something changed between them. Something deepened in a way that only catastrophe and survival can create. Which is why what John said later hit so differently for the people who knew this backstory. In 2023, Rachael went quiet. Not by choice, Not because she wanted to step back from her career or take a break. She went quiet because her voice, that raspy, unmistakable, beloved voice, started failing her. Vocal cord surgery. For most people, that might be a minor medical procedure. For Rachael Ray, it was an identity crisis wrapped in a medical diagnosis. Think about it. Her voice isn't just how she talks. It's her brand. It's her warmth. It's the thing that reaches through the screen and makes you feel like everything's going to be okay. Because she's making pasta and she's laughing and the world can't be that bad. And suddenly, she couldn't use it. She had to whisper. She had to rest. She had to wait. Rachael Ray, the woman who famously said she doesn't stop, had to stop. And John was there. Every day. Every quiet, waiting, uncertain day. He managed things. He protected her privacy. He made sure she didn't push too hard too fast, even when she wanted to. Because Rachael's instinct is always to push, always to perform, always to show up. John's job in that season was to protect her from her own willingness to destroy herself. For the people she serves, this is the part of their story that nobody really talks about. Because it's not dramatic enough for tabloids. It's not scandalous. It doesn't have a shocking headline. It's just a husband loving his wife through something hard. But it changed them. It changed her. When her voice came back, she said it felt like getting herself back. But also, and this is the part that breaks you, she said it felt like getting back something she hadn't realized she'd been taking for granted. And that realization became the foundation of everything John was about to say. It wasn't a press release. It wasn't a perfectly staged photo shoot with a quote carefully approved by a publicist. It was raw. It was real. And it was John Cusimano being more vulnerable in public than he had ever been before. He spoke about Rachael, about watching her survive things that would have ended lesser people, about watching her smile when she was breaking, about the fire and the surgery and the years of criticism and the tabloid noise, and all of it, and choosing, every single day, to believe in her even on the days she couldn't believe in herself. He called her the most resilient person he has ever known. He said, and this is the line that broke people open, that loving her has taught him what it actually means to show up, not for cameras, not for applause, but for someone who needs you in the dark, in the quiet, in the moments nobody else sees. He talked about the version of their life they'd had to say goodbye to. The house, her voice during recovery. The version of Rachael who could run at 100 miles an hour without consequence. He said goodbye to that chapter with gratitude. And he said hello to what they've become. Stronger, slower in the right ways, more honest, more present. Fans lost it. Comments poured in from people who said they'd been in similar situations, who said watching Rachael's journey made them feel less alone in their own, who said John's words reminded them to look at the person beside them and actually see them. That's the power of authentic storytelling. It doesn't stay contained. It spreads because it's true. And buried inside John's message was something subtle, something easy to scroll past if you weren't paying close attention. He mentioned the word enough. He said, quietly, almost as an aside, that one of the hardest lessons of their life together has been learning that enough is actually enough. For someone married to Rachael Ray, that sentence carries serious weight. Because Rachael has never operated in enough mode. She operates in more. More shows, more cookbooks, more content, more giving, more energy poured into other people. And John was saying, gently, publicly, with complete love, that he's grateful she's learning to let enough be enough. Fans who caught that line said it made them cry harder than anything else. Because it wasn't criticism. It was the most loving thing a partner can say to someone who gives everything. It was permission. It was protection. It was John wrapping words around Rachael's exhaustion and saying, "You've done enough. You are enough." Rachael didn't respond with a speech. She didn't film a reaction video. She didn't post a long emotional caption. She posted one photo. Just the two of them. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere that looked like peace. And the caption was for words. He always knows. That's it. No explanation. No performance. No brand. Just a woman acknowledging the man who sees her. The post got hundreds of thousands of likes within hours. The comments were overwhelming. People writing paragraphs about their own marriages, their own struggles, the people in their lives who hold them together when everything falls apart. Rachael had accidentally, or maybe very intentionally, started a conversation that went so far beyond her own story. And now here's the part nobody is talking about, but everyone should be. Rachael Ray is reportedly stepping back, not disappearing, but restructuring, reassessing, choosing differently than she has before. Sources close to her have said she's been spending more time in Italy, more time cooking for pleasure instead of for production, more time being a wife and a dog mom and a person rather than a brand. And honestly, good, because we live in a world that consumes people who give freely, that takes and forgets to ask if the giver is okay. Rachael Ray gave this country 20+ years of herself, her time, her voice, her energy, her vulnerability. And now, finally, she's giving some of that back to herself. And John is standing right there beside her while she does. Go look at the comments on her posts. Not the surface level ones, the long ones, the ones from people saying things like, "I've been running myself into the ground for 20 years, and this made me sit down and call my husband." The ones from people who lost their own homes, their own voices, their own sense of self, and who found something in Rachael's story that made them feel witnessed. The ones from older couples who said watching Rachael and John made them remember why they chose each other. This is what real storytelling does. It doesn't just entertain. It activates something in people. It makes them look up from their own lives and feel something that they needed to feel. Rachael Ray built her career on making people feel welcome at the table. And even now, maybe especially now, she's still doing exactly that. Because here's the truth, at the center of all of this. John's message wasn't really a goodbye. It was a turning point, a public declaration that they've survived their hardest seasons and chosen to walk into whatever comes next together. The fire didn't break them. It stripped away what was unnecessary. The surgery didn't silence Rachael. It reminded her what her voice is actually for. The tabloids didn't define them. They just made the truth more valuable by contrast. And now, standing on the other side of all of it, older, quieter in the best possible way, more intentional, Rachael and John are writing a chapter that looks less like a brand and more like a life. That's not a sad ending. That's the most hopeful thing imaginable. Because if two people can walk through fire, literally and figuratively, and come out the other side still choosing each other, still grateful, still building something worth having, that's not just a love story. That's a blueprint. If this story hit you somewhere deep, if it reminded you of someone you love, or a season you survived, or something you needed to hear today, drop a comment below. Tell me what part stayed with you. Share this with someone who needs it. And if you're not subscribed yet, do it now, because stories like this one, we're just getting started.